it's always a joy to see the little live thing come on. I'm like, okay, it worked.
This is so exciting.
I know.
This is the first time I've done one of these live.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I mean,
I host the podcast and I'm always recording them ahead of time. We never do them live, and I'm like, "Wow, this is a fun new adventure."
hello, Pamela.
Oh, hey, mama. I love it. I love it. How's your mama doing?
She is great, crocking out as always. I actually just saw him over the weekend. So we try to see each other, but like every 2 weeks. So every two
Yeah.
weeks, either I'll go up there or they'll come down.
I love that. I love how supportive your family is and how close you guys are.
They're great. Somebody just the other day was telling me, um, it was such a compliment. They had sent me a message and they said, I hope that one day I can have the type of relationship with my mom the
Yeah.
way you have with your mom. And I'm like, wow,
Yeah.
what a special, amazing compliment.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's huge. That's
Yeah.
huge.
Yeah.
I think that's a really cool testimony too of you and your mom, because you
Mm,
guys have had to fight for the relationship that you have.
we
And
did.
and fight with a lot of grace and have a lot of grace and a lot of forgiveness for each other to get to where you guys are at now.
Oh yeah. Yeah. It took a lot of years. Yeah. It took a
Yeah.
lot of years.
Yeah.
That was something that, when I was writing the book, I didn't really go into too much of that, but it took a lot of years.
Mhm.
Trust and, just the goofy things that mother and daughters have,
Yeah.
just,
Yep. Yes.
but now,
Yes.
like she's one of my best friends and I couldn't envision not having a close relationship with my folks. They're just such key people in my life. Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah.
And, it was really fun getting to meet her at BSI.
Oh yeah.
'Cause that was the first time I got to meet her.
God.
Yeah.
She's a little hoot.
Yeah, Spitfire.
She is. She tag teamed with me when we went to Baton Rouge a couple weeks ago.
Mhm.
We had a great time tromping around New Orleans, and
Yeah.
she lives for that. It's great.
Yeah, I was really proud of you. You were talking about with Carolyn how you guys went to the French Quarter, and there's a lot of fun things to try and experiment and, like, with food and different things down there and alcohol and drinks and things, and you were like, "I didn't touch any of it." I was like,
Mm-mm.
"Go girl,"
No,
'cause that
we had our
beignet.
we had
Yeah.
our breakfast at it was called the Court of Two Sisters, and that was such a fun experience. But it was like we had our breakfast, and it's not that me or mom doesn't drink. It was just one of those little. When I was working with Hiller, he said one of the things above the line was alcohol, and so I was
Yeah.
very adamant about. I don't drink enough, so that one was going to be really easy for me to see it through. Of course, until we get to New Orleans, I'm like, look, drinks. But no, I kept to it and stuck with it, and
Yeah.
we're going to see that one through.
It's so good. It's
Yeah, it
so
was
good.
cool.
Yeah. How have the last few weeks been for you? Like, overall?
Um, August was August was brutal. August was
Yeah.
pretty brutal. It was probably one of the toughest months I've had since this whole thing started. Um, one, just traveling in general for me is
Mhm.
really hard on my body.
Mhm.
It's hard to stay on track with like nutrition. I mean, we do the best we can. When we're
Yeah.
traveling, if you're not in a position to buy your groceries and know every single little thing you're eating, you have to guess.
It's
You
so
make
hard.
educated decisions based on what you know of the menu. And so it's always a guess, but the nutrition is not as hard as what happens to my body just when I fly.
Mhm.
I've had this since I was young. I always thought that it was just a side effect of having obesity. This is one of the edema is just one of the things that can happen.
Mhm.
I've had it since my very first flight. My legs puff up the size of marshmallows, and it's really, really
Yeah.
hard to walk around. And I don't know what I was thinking. I had my compression socks right by my face when I was getting ready. And I don't know why I made the decision, but a part of me was like, you know what? I don't think I need these anymore. I'm fine.
Mm. I mean, you
No.
gotta test it every now and then to see where you're
You
at.
know, that was a stupid test that I did, but yes. Um, and I paid a really good price for it. I get back from California. I'd only been gone for like 4 days. I was with fellow CrossFitters, so we were working out every day. We were eating really well. There was nothing to fear in terms of like what I was eating or anything like that.
It was literally a vacation into the perfect environment for you.
Yeah, yes. Great
Yeah.
support friends. They're in the space. You couldn't ask for anything better. And I get back, I'm up 18 pounds. And it's not unusual to get edema. I get it every time I fly, so it was not a surprise, but it was
Mm.
shocking to see it go that high.
Mhm.
And
Especially after you just had the emotional high of, like, you hit 73 pounds, which is just a pound off of where you wanted to be at the halfway point. And
yep.
so you're, like, at this really great emotional high, and then all of a
And
sudden
then
you see that fluctuation, and you've literally controlled every variable humanly possible for yourself.
to the best I knew, sure. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I knew what it was. Was it a little demotivating? I don't want to say it was demotivating. It was more frustrating
Mhm.
because I'm like, damn it, I knew better.
Mhm.
So you literally just have to wait for your body just to do its thing. There's nothing else that you can do. You stay on track, put your head down, do your workouts, and wait for the water to come off. But 9 days later, I'm getting on a plane again to go do the seminar. And I had gotten down to where I'm like, okay, I got all but 6 in that 9 days. We're
Mhm.
just 6 pounds off. And then, of course, I get on a plane again. Got back, was up another 12. Here we go again.
Mhm.
And this time I wore the compression socks, so it wasn't that big of a deal. But um, I get back and I'm like, I get the messages in my DMs like, hey, Athena, we haven't seen a board update in a while. What's going on? And I'm like, well, I can't post an update until it's lower than it was before. So I'm like, dang it. A week goes by and then 2 weeks go by and I'm like, this is brutal.
Mm.
And, you know, it was brutal for other reasons though. I get to California. I hadn't even gotten on the plane yet. And of course, what happened at the games happened that morning that I was boarding the plane.
Mhm.
And, it was definitely a huge topic over the weekend. It definitely added a new dimension to the weekend that I wasn't counting on.
Mhm. Mhm.
So I think that weekend was just hard for everybody. And then I get back, of course, I'm getting bombarded with messages. And it was just it was a, it was a very distracting month for sure.
Yeah. Was there any temptation for you to just throw in the towel?
No,
Really?
no, never.
That's huge.
I think we're beyond that. And it's like when little things happen, especially when you've been on this road for a really long time, like
Mhm.
you just have to be able to teach yourself a lot of grace and give yourself
Yeah.
like, it's okay. It's totally
Yeah.
fine. You know what it is. Dust yourself off and go again.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I get home from Baton Rouge. I can see the scale and I'm like, okay, so now we've got 18 again. We're back up at
Mm.
18. And so it took the last, what, almost 3 weeks now,
Mhm.
weeks this weekend. And last weekend, I'm doing some home renovation projects and I go over to Home Depot. I step out of the car. and then there's this big freaking pothole that I did not see.
Oh, no.
Out of the Jeep, and bam! Now I've got a sprained ankle. Now I'm hobbling around, and I'm like, you know,
Can I catch a break? Like, Lord, can
okay.
you please catch a break?
I was like,
Wow.
God, I know you said, like you send your toughest battles to your strongest soldiers, but I'm like, I've had enough this month.
Yeah.
That'll be
Yeah.
just fine. But
Mhm.
no, I can honestly say that I've never considered throwing in the towel. Not one time.
That's amazing. That's really amazing. I thought it was really cool the way that Carolyn handled that conversation between you guys, honestly, like, in your update with her. Um, she was so supportive and not reactive to what was
She
going
wasn't.
on, right? And I
She was.
think and I remember when you and I were talking about who potential coaches could be to join the team, and I remember when you talked about, like, how willing she was, and I remember being like, "I don't know, like, a games coach, like, will she be try to be too aggressive? Will she" like, how will she handle just a different case in a different scenario? Like, similar situation of amazing, huge goal that very few people are able to walk on this journey, right? And, like, we've talked about the success rates and that kind of thing, and you've talked about that on other podcasts. So similar thing around, "Hey, we're gonna be pursuing a really large goal here that very few people get to do." But I just didn't know, like, how will that translate for a different journey? And hearing her ability to just be like, "Hey, we're not gonna be super reactive here. We're gonna give your body a few weeks to balance out. We're not gonna just start slashing calories," which I think a lot of nutrition coaches are very eager to start slashing calories a lot of times, and she's like, "We're not gonna slash calories. We're not gonna take these drastic measures. You're gonna just stay the course, and we're gonna see what happens." And she reminded you of the muscle that you're building and the other things that are going on in your body and the body recomp that's happening, and the scale is only one piece of that. It's not the ultimate pinnacle piece of it. And I was just like, "Ugh, what an incredible woman."
Yeah, when she said, you know what, we're just gonna watch it for the next couple weeks. I'm
Mhm.
like, okay.
Mhm.
Um, Carolyn has she surprised me because I think there was a part of me that was very hesitant that when she first reached out.
Mhm.
Every part of me was like, with her coaching Jeff, I had the same feeling, is she going to be really aggressive or, I don't know. I didn't know
Mhm.
what to expect, but what I got was not what I was expecting in the best, most amazing way.
Yeah.
It has
Yeah.
been a rock.
Mhm. And it's cool. She is
Yeah,
so steady.
she is.
I was
Yeah.
like, "Okay. All right. This was absolutely the best coach for this piece of the puzzle."
Yeah. But on the movement side, I could say the same thing, about Miranda and the
Mhm.
movement side. There wasn't, I told her I had a little accident and again, um, there wasn't any strong reaction. It was first, are you okay? Of course. And was like, okay,
Yeah.
well, what can we do?
Yeah.
Awesome. Nothing crazy.
Yeah.
Modifying accordingly. And I'm like, it's going to be okay.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
funny thing is that out of all the times that I have hurt myself, it's never been in CrossFit. It's because I'm close. You know what I mean? I laugh because I always say, everybody's afraid, oh, CrossFit's so dangerous. I've
Yeah.
never hurt
Yeah.
myself in CrossFit. It's
Yeah.
been everything else.
Yep.
I'm like, no, I hurt myself going to Home Depot. That's what it was. And, tripping on myself or whatever.
Yeah. I
But
wanna back up a little bit. I know this month has been really hard for you. It started off in a really intense way, but there was a really big win that happened this month for you. Or I guess last month, in the month of August. So we're backing up a little bit, but and you and Gordon talked a little bit about identity. But you and I have been friends for 6 years now.
Yeah.
6 years. Yeah, 2018. And, something we've talked a lot about is identity in your relationship with CrossFit. And you made a very, like, distinct choice not to go to the games, and that was actually a really big deal of, like, I love CrossFit, but this is not my identity. This is not actually who I am. It's a part of my story. It's a part of my journey. I love this community with all my heart, but this is this is not who Athena is, and this is not where my value lies. That was
Right.
massive.
It was huge. Yeah. Uh, I don't, I don't really even know. I actually, I think that that's been a long time coming.
Mhm.
I think it started when the seminar was getting off the ground, and there was definitely some identity issues that I had to uh, deal with during the creation of that course. But I think it's kind of it was just watching the space. And
Mm,
um, it seemed like every single time that I would feel periods of like really high anxiety, or it was when I was spending all this time on social media or listening to all these CrossFit podcasts, and I was in it and I wanted to know everything that was going on. And it wasn't until I, unplugged from that a little bit and got away from a lot of that where I realized like my life is actually really peaceful.
mm,
Like I don't
mhm,
know if I could find a complaint if I tried. I started spending more time reading, started getting off a lot of the podcasts and started reading, and stopped following a lot of the, CrossFit media, and just nothing bad. It was just unplug and did
mm,
a lot of talking to God and praying, and life just was very peaceful. And so when
yeah,
it came to the games this year, I had my Airbnb booked the day that they announced Dallas. Like
mm,
I was ready to go.
yeah,
And definitely starting this year, like I was really excited to like people in the community that I hadn't met yet. And I was so looking forward to it until about June.
mhm,
And it wasn't it wasn't because something happened in the CrossFit space. It was like something was happening in me, I think. And it was more like I don't I don't want I want CrossFit to be part of my life, and I want it to be part of every day going forward. But
mhm,
it's not going to define me. I have to stop getting to the point where, if some event happens and I'm not there, like I'm okay with that.
yeah,
You know?
yeah,
I did a practice run in February when there was an event, and I'm like, you're not going.
hmm,
You're not going. Like, what do you need out of this? I mean, it sounds really silly, but I mean, these are like questions I had to ask myself, like, why do you want to go? Are you afraid
mhm,
something's going to happen without you? Or
yeah,
um, are you afraid you're not going to get your picture for your Instagram wall? Like, why do you need to be there? You've already been to this event 5 times before.
mhm, mhm,
And it was like, that's what it was. And it's a brutal reality when you discover like, oh, you're afraid that you're not going to be important.
mm,
You're gonna
yeah,
miss something.
you're gonna
And
lose
so
out on some of your relevancy.
something, yeah.
Yeah,
And so in June, when it was getting closer and closer to the games, I'm like, it was I don't know, it was a really weird feeling that I just did not need to be there. And I think I
mhm,
struggled with that initially. Like, I want to go, I want to see people, I want to meet. And it was like, for your peace of mind, the message,
mhm,
was don't go.
mm,
Like, you don't need to be there.
yeah,
And I fought with that for about a better part of a week. And then ironically, I'm talking with some friends, those mutual friends that we were talking about, and they're like, yeah, we're not going to the games either. I'm like, really?
mm,
Hmm. And they have they've got a bunch of kids who I just love dearly. And, you know, I've only gotten to watch them grow up through, pictures. And I was like, fuck the games. Or, fuck the games. We're going to go and we're actually going to take a vacation this year. I mean, that was actually a suggestion of Gordon. Sorry about her. That was actually one of Gordon's suggestions. And it's like, Athena, when was the last time you took a vacation? I'm like, 2009. He's like, what? And I'm like, well, that sounds crazy, but here's what I would do. Like I would put together this great vacation, and it was always piggybacking some kind of work thing. Like, hey, I was going to do a seminar here. I'll stay 3 extra days, and I'll turn it into a little mini vacation. And that's what I did for years and years and years. Never just to unplug. So when I found out my mutual friends weren't going, and it was like, man, I want this opportunity to spend time with the kids where it's not through a screen, it's not through a picture, it's not like I get to be anything for a couple of days. And I'm like, I'm doing it.
Yeah.
And when I'm selling my ticket, I'm like, I can't believe I'm doing this. But I'm selling the ticket and canceling the Airbnb. And then Friday, I got everything packed. I'm running around the house. I've got 2 hours to board my plane. And then I saw it all unfold. And it was at that moment that I was like, that was divine intervention for me, because I think he knew that it probably would have been 20 times worse had I been there, because that is not something that I would have taken easily. I would have absorbed it all, and
Yeah.
it would have
Well,
been
you're
hard.
also a fixer, and so you would have been trying to insert yourself in places to know how do you help people and how do you be there for people, and there's
I
a
mean,
time and a place for that, but
yeah,
there's also a time and a place for you to be taking a step back and pouring into the relationships that are closest to you.
right.
And I think like that's the piece, especially for people that love others so big. It's hard to remember like, oh yeah, I need to invest. There are layers to relationships, and some people are in an inner layer, some people are in an outer layer, and I need to prioritize what's right here, right now.
Yeah. So it was one, it was awesome because I got to have that time. But then on the other side, it was like listening to that prompt and saying, if I miss an event, it's okay. CrossFit go on without Athena, and Athena's going to be okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was a huge victory. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And that was big. It was big.
I agree.
But
Well worth it. That's great.
even if you did have the edema and all the things that came afterwards, it was still worth it. Still worth it.
Every second.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Absolutely. When I was thinking about our time together here, and I was just like so excited to get to have girlfriend time, and then like, oh yeah, this is going to be public for other people to see and watch me participating in. But I was thinking, I was like, I kind of want to ask the questions that maybe other people have been wondering, but the topics just haven't come up, like dating.
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh.
What has dating been like this year for you, and how have you navigated that?
So I was dating for a little bit last winter. You know what? I'm just going to be honest with you, Lindsey. It's terrifying. It's absolutely terrifying.
Yeah.
I had met someone last winter that I thought was amazing and wonderful, and it was a beautiful month. And then, stuff that he was saying it wasn't lining up. Something didn't make any sense. And, there's this little thing in Minnesota called, public access, and you can look anybody up in court records. And that's what I did.
That situation was wild.
And
That was wild.
I found out, he had a lot of ex-wives, and he had a lot of kids. He had a lot of ex-wives, and it was I think all of it combined was just, it was a little too much. It wasn't the wives and the kids that was too much. It was the criminal record that was too much for me. So
yeah. And I mean, I think you you were very gracious in that situation. Because people can have pasts, right? And like as believers, we believe like God can literally redeem any situation.
he can.
And so, but it was who that person was in the present also. Like it was the stuff you found, but then also, and you only did that searching because you're like, hey, he's telling me stuff that's not lining up.
It's true.
But also it was who he was like in the present. Because you're one of the least judgmental people I've ever met. And you have so much grace for people. And you do really believe like that through God's grace, like people really can change. And so you give space for that. But he wasn't that. Like he was not in that process. He did not have a relationship with the Lord where he had like where you could see the God's hand in his life. Like
Right.
none of that was there. And yeah. So it was like it was good. But I feel like that relationship was a catalyst for a lot of stuff for you though.
It was. I honestly think it was the catalyst for this entire year.
Yeah. Like I remember like our conversations and I'm just like, God, like what the heck? This guy seemed awesome.
Yeah.
And then like everything unraveled. But yeah, sorry, I interrupted. Like it just
It's
look
so
back
cool.
and be like, it's so good. But like in the moment, you're like, oh my gosh, like what the heck is happening right now?
It's really cool actually that we're having these, like I was wondering like where, because if for everybody that's what, like I told Lindsey there's nothing off limits, but oh now to hear yours.
Yeah. Like you told me nothing was off limits. And I told you that's dangerous. It's really dangerous when you tell a girlfriend like, hey, nothing's off limits.
No, it's very cool. I think it's like it's taking some bravery on my part because this is stuff that I've never talked about with anybody but really you and my folks. This is cool. Last winter, I decided to get, I joined, there was a couple like Christian dating sites. And for those of you who don't know, like I was single for over 10 years and I just wasn't there, the relationship that I got out of, it was very mentally abusive. And, we were together for almost 12 years. And so when that ended, it was just, it put I knew that there was a lot of things that I needed to work on. And I firmly believe, we can't bring something valuable to a relationship unless we become valuable, like we have to be the person that we want to be. And if we're not, we have work. And so I recognize that. And so, all those years were the years that I was going to therapy and I was doing the hard things. That damn StreamYard again. There's number one.
Like, of course, right now is when this is going to happen. Like, of course, right now. Okay. Yeah.
I told Lindsey this StreamYard thing is going to ditch at least once because that's what it does. So I had finally gotten to a point where I felt like, okay, like I think I'm ready to open up my heart again. And God knows the type of man that I want this time. And I'm going to put it out there and I'll know, like this is going to be great. And
Mhm.
I went into it with such an open mind. And I met this guy, and in short order, long story short, I found out he had 5 children. And I had been very adamant for whatever reason the last 10 years about not dating anybody. I did not want to date anybody that had children. I didn't want to date somebody that had been married before. Like knowing where I come from, divorce, and the idea of being a step parent was mortifying for me. And I always thought that that's what it was. I just didn't want to deal with the type of things that I had to deal with growing up. So I just shut it out. And I think somewhere along the line, all those years, it became a rule. And I didn't even know that it had become like a dead fast rule. So
Mhm.
maybe there was plenty of opportunity that had come up, but I didn't even consider it because it was a rule. I can't date anybody that has kids. No, 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 no. And when I met this guy, suddenly it was like I had changed my mind in an instant, like,
Mhm.
maybe I could consider somebody that's been married before. Maybe I could consider somebody that had kids. And it was a couple weeks of a deep dive into myself in December. And what came out of it was essentially like, I don't think that I had really ever properly grieved the loss of my son. And it was something that happened when I was very young. I was 22 when it happened. And my son, Aiden, I was 5 months along, and I lost him. And it was something that it was so traumatic at the time that I
Mhm.
worked, I kept busy, and I just never really dealt with it. And so here I was creating all these rules, thinking it was just because I didn't want to be somebody's stepmom, when in reality it was I wanted to be a mom.
Mhm.
And the fact that I couldn't be a mom after Aiden, I wasn't able to have any kids. And not, I don't know, I think that I was very what's the word? Um I was angry. There isn't any other word. Maybe I was just mad and disappointed that I felt like God had taken that from me.
Mhm.
And maybe that's why I loved the kiddo so much. Like I get to live vicariously through other people.
Mhm.
And so that was something that I really had to come to terms with and just be okay. Like, hey, Athena, there's lots of other ways for you to become a mommy, and that's okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so this relationship kind of brought all that out, and I didn't know it was there.
Mhm.
And I'm like, okay, like when I look at my parents, I was walking up the hall, and I have this collage of my parents, up on the wall, and I'm looking at my folks, and I'm like, is the divorce thing, is people that have been married before, is that really what's bothering you? And I'm
Mhm.
looking at pictures of my parents when I'm asking myself this question. My dad, this is my mom is his third,
Mhm.
and my dad is my mom's fourth. But here they are, they've been married over 30 years. And when I think of two people that have one of the strongest marriages I know, it's my mom and dad.
Mhm.
And I'm like, what if either one of them had said that, And it was just kind of I had a testament in front of me already that
Mhm.
marrying somebody that had already been married before wasn't again, it sounds really,
Mhm.
but I think it was going through so many marriages that
Yeah.
caused this fear, understandable fear of
Mhm.
not wanting to duplicate that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that process of signing up for this goofy Christian dating site turned into one of the most eye-opening things that I had discovered about myself. And I feel like I was kind of holding on to Aiden. It
Mm.
was time to, like, it's okay, you
Yeah.
know, I'll
Yeah.
see you again. And And even though this guy had a very lengthy criminal record and Athena pulled every red flag there was, I think it was what got me
Yeah.
the day that I did this post out to Hiller. And it was that I tell people a lot, it was a call out. I was calling his ass out. Yes, I was. But really, I think it was more like I think Sebon said it best, actually. It was more of a Hail Mary.
Mm-hmm.
I would
Yeah.
agree. Something had to give.
Do you mind going into that a little bit more about why it was a Hail Mary?
Sure.
You don't have to. I just, like I said, it's just a question if you're comfortable going
No,
into
I
it.
don't mind talking about it at all. Honestly, it was very like, I'm sure I had probably been paying attention and watching for a long, long time. I don't think it had to be Hiller. Hiller just happened to be the guy that did the video that day.
Yeah.
So I think it was just the luck of the luck of the luck.
He had the loudest mouth that
He
day.
had the loudest mouth that day, and he had the loudest mouth for a long, long time. So it was
That's
more
like
like,
most days. Yeah.
yeah, let's be honest. And so it was more like how I just needed I did my best. I had done my absolute very best when I had a coach, and it was a valuable experience, and I missed it. And I missed kind of like the camaraderie. I just missed that feeling like I wasn't trying to do it by myself.
Mm-hmm.
I needed the support. And I think a lot of that had to do with the fact that when I opened up my affiliate, you're the affiliate owner now. And I have such a tiny space as it is that I didn't get those group workouts anymore. I wasn't, working out with the group anymore. I wasn't getting all the stuff that made CrossFit so cool and why I fell in love with it in the first place. That whole part of it went away.
Yeah.
And so it was miserable for me. And I had tried to go to several boxes and it just didn't feel right. Nothing, looking back, I didn't know what it was at the time. And it was nothing against those CrossFit boxes. I think the heart of it was, it wasn't the CrossFit box that I started out in. And you know what? That was, there was nothing that was going to replace that. Nothing can. It's not going to be the same. It can't be the same.
Yeah. I think you had a really good insight during that season where you are such a strong person and you are so sure of yourself and you know yourself and you're a very knowledgeable person. And so you noticed that there were some coaches where they were afraid to coach you. And you're like, hey, I'm human too, who also needs accountability, who also needs someone who's going to come along and like call me out on my stuff.
Right.
But these people were afraid of doing that. And it's not because, I mean, you're not intimidating or those kinds of things. It's just that like you are such a strong, capable person, but people don't realize that strong, capable people still need people. They still need people in their corner and not just going, rah, rah, you got this, but also, hey, I think we might need to talk about something that's a little difficult right now.
Yeah.
I think you might be holding yourself back in these areas, and we need to have a conversation about that.
I didn't know what it was. It had happened multiple times. And then finally, this one box that I had gone into, I was actually really disappointed because I loved the owners. I thought it was great. But I felt weird out on the floor. Again, it's very difficult for me to articulate. It's just something wasn't jiving. And I felt like the coach, maybe I didn't see it correctly, but I felt like the coach was avoiding me. And I'm like, did I do something? Did I say something? And I pulled the owner aside after. It was just one day. It was just like, just one day too many times that it had happened. And I finally pulled the owner aside and I'm like, look, maybe I'm making all of this up and maybe this is a story I'm telling myself, but something doesn't feel right to me. And I'm trying desperately to figure out, like, why can't I get the same coaching that everybody else seems to get? Why am I feeling like I'm being singled out somehow? And she was like, Athena, I have to tell you something. Like, they're scared of you. And I was like, come again. Scared of me? Why?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, because you have scaled nation. You teach people how to scale people forward. This is your whole mantra. And they feel like there's no scale that they're going to be able to give you that's better than what you can do for yourself, and you make people nervous. And I was like, I didn't know I was doing that. Granted, I know it's probably nothing I could have done any differently, but I think it was just, I felt so lonely when that
Yeah.
happened. And it was like, so I think a couple months of, trying to work out in the garage really was the catalyst for this whole, I need a freaking coach.
Mhm.
But when that post came out, it was more like, at the time, I thought apparently there's something really wrong with me, and I need really aggressive, but
So we're gonna go to the most aggressive person in the space. Like we're just gonna skip all this in the middle and go straight there.
I thought that's what I needed, thinking like maybe I just need that good swift kick in the ass. The person that needs the kick in the ass is myself.
Mm,
I will agree that I did. I needed all of that.
yeah.
But Hiller, his coaching style, though, what was funny about Hiller is that his coaching style was not it wasn't the perceived aggressive person that I had seen in the videos, and that aggressive persona that he had. It definitely was much more different than what I had gotten. But yeah, that was kind of the start of it all.
Yeah. Yeah. So did you decide, going back to dating, have you, like this year, have you done any dating, or have you decided, I'm gonna put that on hold, or like where are you at with all of that whole space?
Um, I don't know if it was a decision. I mean, there's definitely been a few guys poking around this year, but uh, I don't know if it was a conscious decision. It was just more like, I feel like it would be a distraction.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, I don't want to get to the point, at least this year, where I get comfortable or an opportunity to feel like, well, it's okay. He loves me like I am. I mean, I'm not saying I would do that, but I have before.
Yeah.
And so it was like, I don't want to get comfortable. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
maybe after this year is done, perhaps I'll put that back on the radar. But, um, I'm not going to lie, though. Those dating sites are terrifying.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
This dude with the criminal record was not
Uh,
the only one that I came across during that time, and it is terrifying.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, definitely not for the faint of heart at
No,
all.
no.
Yeah. I mean, and you've talked about the relationship dynamics before. It being on the same page when it comes to lifestyle and values are so important. And just like how when one person decides I'm going to get healthy in a certain way, if their partner is not on board with it, it can be so difficult. And but it's like it's so worth it if you're single to know what your values are and to find someone that shares those values with you. Um,
Yeah,
and it's also a challenge of like, okay, if my values are shifting and changing in certain areas, how do I still love my spouse when we're in different spots?
hmm.
And how do I still navigate that? Like it poses some pretty big challenges for people. But
I spent a lot of years with my ex, and I think it was I spent enough years with him where although I never walked out of there with like the list, I do know like how I wanted to feel this time.
Mhm.
So I did something different this time that I hadn't done in previous relationships. And I literally feel like I just gave it to God. And I'm like, when it's the right time and the right person, I'll know.
Mhm.
I was just having this conversation with a friend today. I'm like, I don't know if it's going to be in the grocery store or a CrossFit gym. Who knows?
Yeah. You
But
never
when it's,
know.
I'll know. Yeah. Until
Yeah.
then, hey, I'm busy doing other stuff. So
It's so good. It's so good. Are you going shopping for a new wardrobe at all? These are just like I'm like total girlfriend mode right now.
no, no, these are
So,
great. Like nobody
I
asked me
was
these.
like
This
I'm
is
like, 'cause
awesome.
I know, like, if I'm following you, I'd be curious, like, as a woman, like, how are you navigating these different things? Like, are you 'cause there's and I'll back up maybe a little bit. You know, some people hold on to, like, that's one pair of jeans, I'm gonna fit into these one day, which I hate that shaming element of it, right, for women. I'm like, "No, like, this is where we're at today. Dress your body for where you're at today. Embrace it. Let's just look beautiful with where we're at, and don't hold on to clothes that you're, like, one day shaming," that kind of a thing. But when you're
Yeah.
on a journey like what you're on right now, I mean, the weight loss has been so fast, and so it's like, do you go shopping every certain do you have, like, benchmarks? You're like, "I'm going shopping at these different points." Are you waiting until the end of this year? Are you going, "You know what? Nope, I need new sizes now of these things, and we're just gonna be mindful in how much we buy." Like, what's that looking like for you?
Well, I think like a lot of CrossFitters, the majority of our wardrobe has a lot of lycra. Uh,
Spandex all the way.
so, so, you know,
There's nice fluctuation range with that, which is a positive.
there is. And so I think the fact that um, I already buy stuff that's one or two sizes smaller because when you're larger, you do like to have that tighter compression.
The
Yeah.
compression, yeah.
And I have skin fold, and in that skin fold there's also loose skin in places,
Mm,
so I have to have that extra compression, so I was always buying one or two sizes too small anyway.
yeah.
So as the weight has come off, no, not really. One, it's too expensive to go out and do full wardrobe shops. It's more like, hey, all my t-shirts have gotten to the point where all of them look stupid. It's time,
Yeah,
Athena.
yeah.
So it was more like that. I
Okay.
never had I never had a piece of clothing. I mean, for me, it was different, right? Because I've never been small before.
Mm, mm,
So, I mean, I've been over 225 pounds since I was 12. So there wasn't
yeah,
anything that was like, oh, I wore this in high school. Maybe I can fit into it again. It was never like
yeah.
for me. But I did have this drawer that I kept where, unfortunately in the CrossFit space, sizing has always been a challenge. And, most of even the extra larges or the 2X's were something that I was like, I think I would be wearing this even if I was like a 12, 14. They just run
Mm,
really small.
yeah,
I had this over the years, people have given me just tons and tons and tons of, you know, shirts and CrossFit gym stuff. And that drawer has a little bit of everything, but it's more like, it's not the shame drawer. It's more like it's the, one of these days I'll be able to wear those CrossFit shirts and it's going to be awesome.
yeah, yeah.
It was
Like a
my little,
almost like a promise to yourself.
yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's
I,
cool.
I did keep all of those and there's a lot of them.
Yeah. Is your favorite brand still Born Primitive, or is there some other brands that you've started to like?
Um, when Born Primitive came out with their extended line, which obviously we got to be a part of doing that. Um, when you come out with extended sizes, it has to become part of your brand. It's not just, nothing against Born Primitive. I love Born Primitive and all the people over there are
Mhm.
amazing. However, it can't just be like a one and done type of thing. If
Yeah,
you are wanting to serve that demographic. It's not just a release that we get to do this PR thing in the morning chalk. It's, hey, we need to make sure with every new line that we do, we pick one thing, at least one, whether it's a pants or a shirt or something that is in that extended size, so that the
And just
collection.
really practical marketing of showing bodies
Correct.
at certain sizes, and it's
Yeah,
it's not that's beyond the whole DEI conversation. That's just a practical, if you want to sell certain sizes, you need to show certain sizes in
this is just
that are
marketing 101.
available. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's like we're not talking about DEI here. We're just talking about, like, basic communication 101. If I'm gonna know that this exists, I need to see it and know that it be told that this exists.
Right. People have to know that the sizes are available. And
Yeah.
I got all the newsletters, and there was never, I think there was one the day that it came out, but there wasn't anything after that. And I'm like, well, people aren't going to buy the extended sizes if they don't know, and you're not
Yeah.
actively adding to the release. So,
Yeah.
Born Primitive still is the favorite of all the sports bras and stuff like that. I love them. I could
Mhm.
not be happier with them. They are my absolute favorite. So yeah, I'd say it's probably a combination of Born Primitive, Athleta. Um, well, really those two.
Yeah. 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 I think those are they're just solid.
Solid.
They're just solid brands.
Yeah.
Solid.
There's some Lulu sprinkled in there, but I'd say
Yeah.
those are the primary for sure.
Yeah. Man, that's like a whole other podcast we could get into, is the whole brand and marketing conversation around this stuff. And,
Mm-hmm.
like, the practical side of marketing, again, beyond DEI, just like there's a market here. There could potentially be a good lucrative market here for somebody, but other
That
podcasts.
that would be an interesting show, because boy, we
Other
could.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, how how has your relationship with the Lord been through this last month and a half, with it being so tough and being the hardest month of this year so far?
Honestly, I think when things get hard, they're not going as, when I say things get hard, there's a degree of, this whole year is hard. Every day is hard. But I mean, like, when there are times when I feel like, though it's never gotten to the point of throwing in the towel, there have definitely been days where not everything was on my plan. You know what I
Mhm.
mean? Where I'll get
Mhm.
upset,
Mhm.
or I'll get stressed, and not everything that got consumed was part of the plan. That
Yeah.
has happened. But I feel like um, when things aren't going smooth, that's the time that I tend to lean on him more. I would say my relationship feels stronger when I need him more.
Mhm. We're more sensitive and more aware of our need for him when things are going pretty tough.
Well, yeah, and ironically, I feel like those times when I'm sitting down and having those conversations, like, "Hey, Lord, I need your help here," or
Mhm.
"This doesn't make sense to me," or "I don't know why this happened," or whatever it is. It's those are the times where I come out with the best points of clarity I've ever had.
Mhm.
Just like the games thing in June.
Mhm.
I honestly believe I was spared.
Mhm. Yeah.
Like, he knew what I needed this year, and that was probably not it.
Mhm.
And so it doesn't make sense at the time, but when I look back, I was like, dang, all those times when I was praying when things weren't going very well, gosh, what I got to walk out of there with was pretty cool.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, like, this year has been full of different adversities for you, and
Yeah.
some that are not appropriate to be public, you know? Um, but I wanna acknowledge that they're there, and,
Yeah.
it's been I mean, like, I can think of a couple of phone calls where I wanted to scream for you because I was so angry about a situation that had happened. Um, where I hung up and, like, I knew how angry and the tears of rage that I was crying for you, my friend. I couldn't imagine being the person in that space, in those situations. And yet you've, um you've surrendered to the process in a really beautiful way, and you haven't let up. You haven't let up.
No way. Come too
And it's
far now.
been and, like, I feel really honored that I've been able to get to see that and see some of those more inside internal things. Just really honored that I've been able to get to see some of those things. And your resilience and your persistence has just been it's been incredible.
Thank you for that. Seriously, it means a lot.
Mhm.
I'm not no, you know what? I think it took me my whole life. I think this year, for sure, there's definitely been some really good ahas, but uh, I think that I came to just a really good place with, you know, I feel like I feel like in my 20s and 30s, it was always like I got to get the weight off and I got to do it by September or whatever. There was always some crazy shit I was trying to do
Yeah.
and gosh, I feel like if anything, especially over the last, definitely 4 or 5 months, this element of just being at peace with we can keep the Northern Star. I'll give you an example because I know I'm going to be all over the board, but somebody had come to me and they said, "Hey, Athena, so something that you said doesn't make any sense to me." And I said, "Well, help me understand what I said." And they said, "Well, you're the one that's always saying don't assess time, don't put time on something. Yet here you are, you come out at the beginning of the year and you said, I'm going to lose 148 pounds this year."
In 1 year.
And they said, "So you are the most outspoken against this. You tell everybody to make peace with time, yet here you are." And it was funny because when this person said that, it was like, damn, point taken. I totally get why you'd be confused. And how I responded with that is I simply said that this is what I wanted to lose because that was what was left. That was what was left to get me to my first goal. And I wanted to give every bit of focus over the next 12 months to make that happen.
Mm.
I never closed the door on, "Hey, Athena, it's really, really, really aggressive, and you might not be able to do all that in 1 year." I left space for that.
Mhm.
But when I set the goal, it was like, no, I'm going to keep the Northern Star there. It's going to ensure that I can wake up every single day and look at this and be like, you set a goal. Now, there
Mhm.
was no promise of, hey, there's a lot of things outside of our control that we can't control. Time being one of them. You can't control time, and despite all of your best efforts, it doesn't mean that you're going to be able to get that exact number. You
Mhm.
could do everything right and not hit a number by a certain date. I will agree that's ridiculous, but I wasn't going to move the star. At the end of the year, when we get to January 15th, which would mark the 365, we can reassess and move the benchmark then, but we're not moving the goalposts until we get to that day.
Mm. You
And
gotta
that's
miss
all.
it before you know if you need to move it.
That's right. I was like, you know what? I'm not going to say anything. I'm going to wait until I get there. And especially over this last 5 months, like I want to give it everything I've got.
Mm.
Well, like 4.5 now. I want to give it everything I have. And when we get to January 15th, we'll see where we're at and we'll reassess and we'll move the goalpost in.
Yeah.
Time is just like, am I hung up on time? Carolyn and Miranda were both concerned when they first started coaching me. Like, Athena, what's going to happen if you get to, you
Yeah.
know, January 15th and you're not where you want to be? Is this going to be like, is this going to be a deal breaker for you?
Yeah.
I'm like, I've already been there before. We're not doing that again.
Yeah. Yeah.
It January 15th will be whatever it is, and then we'll
And
reassess and keep going.
assess there. Yeah.
Yeah.
Gosh. I feel like we should do this again. And I want to talk about like how cool it is that like how cool it's been for you to have two female coaches. But I feel like
It's
it's a conversation for another time, maybe. I don't know.
You know what? Most of you don't know this, but Lindsey is also one of my coaches. Lindsey just happens to be my coach on Scaled Nation, and she has been amazing for me. But I see you in so many other ways, Lindsey. It's not just like helping me understand how to navigate the seminar side of things. It's like understanding like my faith and understanding like there's so much that you've taught me there. What do you know, like you are one of my coaches. You're the third coach because you are. Um, but having the two female public coaches, we could probably get into this on our next one because we should definitely do more of these. But I will
Mhm.
say, that was a very interesting question that Gordon had actually had on that was why that was such a big deal.
Mm.
And I think it was a big deal because I had one female coach before, and it was definitely a burn. But just overall, I think with how I grew up, the things that happened to me when I was young, I just had a very, again, I think understandable distrust for women.
Yeah.
Like my friend circles growing up were very, very small because of that.
Mhm.
And I just never let a lot of women in for that reason.
Mm.
And so I think to some degree, a lot of women have misunderstood me over the years, but it really had nothing to do with them. It had everything to do with like, I don't trust nobody.
Yeah.
Like I'm just
Yeah.
not, I just wasn't equipped. I mean, this was like past Athena, but it was monumental having two women coaches because um, that was something that I needed to work through and be okay and allow trust in that way.
Mhm.
And it's been one of the biggest blessings of my life.
So good.
Yeah,
So good.
it's been pretty cool.
Yeah. Yep.
So we should do this again.
I would love that. I would love that.
We're gonna have these little fellowships with Lindsey.
Yeah. I'll ask all the questions that the rest of us are kind of wondering.
I love it. I love the questions tonight. That was fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it was. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know, out of all the podcasts that I've ever been on, and there's been a lot of them, not a single person has ever asked that question before. Nobody. Nobody
Yeah.
asked if I was married or if was dating. Nobody has even, nobody ever went there. That was surprising to me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm.
Like I said, I was like, what are the things that people are we have like I haven't heard anyone talking about with you that I would be wondering if I wasn't your friend. I mean, I asked you all these questions where I'm like, I know the answer to all these. How do I ask them in a way that it's okay? But yeah, I was like, I would want to know what her dating life is like. How does she navigate dating? Does she go on dates? How do you how do you tell a guy like this is the journey that I'm on? Or how do you if you're not drinking, are you worried about what the guy might think about you because you're not having a drink with it on a date? You know, like those are the practical things I think that we as women, when if we're on a journey, we're afraid of like, oh, maybe I just like I don't want to come off as high maintenance or to this or to that. So I'm gonna fudge a little bit here because I want to make a good impression on this date. You know, like all the things that we battle when we're looking for our person.
I mean, I think to some degree, like there's nothing saying that I can't like actively date right now. I just, man, like when you're like really dating somebody, like you owe that person time, quality time, especially
Mhm.
when you're trying to get to know somebody. And I feel like selfishly, I don't have that kind of time right now.
No, because
So
Athena has a full-time job on top of Scaled Nation, on top of all the time it takes to prep your food and do the things that you need to, like, it is a real time commitment.
it's a lot. By the time that you add the workout time in there, it adds up, and it takes a substantial
Mhm.
part of the day for everything on that
Yeah.
list, whether it's like your morning checklists, your workout times, your LSD, not flying purpose.
Which I would love for you to tell a guy, "Yeah, do you wanna do an LSD with me?"
I would love to like
I'm sorry,
capture
wha I'm sorry,
that
what?
going forward. Um,
What
uh,
is it? Long, slow distance, right? Is that what
yeah,
it's yeah, yeah. Which that's another topic for another time, the importance of LSD on your journey.
yes. Yes, we should definitely get into that topic on the next one. So many
Mhm.
reasons to go there. I think people would find some of that really, really valuable.
Yeah, I do too. I do too.
Mhm. Well,
Mhm.
Miss Pamela, thank you for letting me borrow Lindsay tonight. And make sure you tell Andrew I said hello.
I will. I
And
will.
thank you for this. I love you.
Yeah, I love you too, sister. This is good.
It was good. I can't wait for our next one.
Same, same.
All right, sister. I'll talk to you
Alrighty.
soon.
Okay, bye.